And speaking of the cold, tonight a warming shelter in North Idaho is preparing for the worst as weather is forcing more people to use their resources to avoid sub-zero temperatures. KREM 2's Connor McAvoy reports from an overnight shelter in Post Falls.
Right behind me is the St. Vincent de Paul warming shelter. It's the only overnight warming shelter in all of Kootenai County, and staff say that with the restricted number of beds they have, that means that some people may have to be turned away.
It makes a big difference for those of us like me, because I'd be having to sleep out on the streets.
Lila Hunt is a regular visitor of the St. Vincent de Paul warming shelter. She came to Idaho from Helena, Montana, where she says the resources she needed during the winter were few and far between.
And it was getting colder and colder, so I'm very blessed to have hooked up with this here.
The warming shelter now has a 25-person capacity compared to its previous 60-person capacity. The previous St. Vincent de Paul warming shelter used to hold that many people before rising maintenance costs forced them to move below St. Vincent de Paul housing.
As the winter nights get colder, we'll be at capacity guaranteed.
Executive Director Scott Ferguson says in the past the shelter opened once temperatures reached 28 degrees or lower. He says thanks to community donations, they've been able to open their shelter at 33 degrees or lower this year, at a time when he says the need is growing.
What we notice is that the waiting line, as folks are lining up to receive access to this resource, is getting longer and longer. And so we are being very intentional to make sure that we can work with our community to keep it open as long as possible.
As long as possible for people like Hunt.
I feel a real sense of security being able to stay here.
A sense of security the shelter wants to preserve. Staff say anyone who is turned away by the shelter will be directed to the Northern Idaho Crisis Center. They'll provide transportation for anybody who needs it. In Post Falls, Connor McAvoy, KREM 2 News.